Yo, what's good, YouTube? Zamcro here, aka Scoop, back with the CPC Majors Season 6, Week number 5, and we're taking on the Baltimore Raikougars. I got a little, I guess I stuttered for a second. Hesitated is a better word. We're facing off against Moxie Infernape and his Baltimore Raikougars, where he's drafted a pretty solid team and he's having a pretty decent season. He has Garchomp, which is his Z-move user, Thunder's Incarnate, Heatran, Reuniclus, Klefki, Heracross, Drapion, Mega Medicham, Floatzel, Tangela, Articuno, and Marshtomp. So his last 3 mons are kind of meh, but they can perform solid roles for his team, and I think his team overall is very, very solid, despite being just a little bit top heavy. I do think it's a very, very solid team. And Mega Garchomp, Thunder's Incarnate, Mega Medicham, even Heatran and Heracross, just very monstrous teams. Reuniclus with all the tricks up its sleeves and stuff like that. So Floatzel is my opponent's other Z-move user. I don't expect Floatzel to come, but it could. It could. It's got a cool speed tier, but I really don't expect it to come. Whoops. But yeah, so we have Mega Gallade, Tapu Fini, Alolan Muck, Licky, Bronzong, Thundurus, Therian. So both Thundurus is facing off here. We have Savali, Gligar, Kartana, Haunter, and Tortonator, where we're bringing Mega Gallade, Tapu Fini, Alolan Muck, Licky, Thundurus, Therian, and Gligar. So lots of different things my opponent can do, like Garchomp can be offensive, defensive, looking to be more of an offensive type. Like, I would bring an offensive variant versus my team. It just really wrecks stuff. Like, just really need dual stab and perhaps like Drapion for pursuit support versus Bronzong, and then like Earthquake and Dragon Claw literally hits everything. You could even maybe bypass Dragon Claw for maybe something else that can maybe hit Gligar pretty hard, and then Earthquake can really just hit everything else pretty super hard. So so I think that's a viable option, is like Drapion and Garchomp, so that Garchomp can just murk things after Drapion removes Bronzong from the matchup. Also, he could be a sub SD variant. He could be a Scarf variant. I don't really expect Scarf, but it's a possibility, I think. He could also run like Choice Bandit or something like that. It does get ways to hit Bronzong, so. He also has Thunder's Therian. Garchomp is a potential rocker as well. And then he's got Thunder's Therian, which, even without Z-moves, is really, really powerful. Things like Nasty Plot and Agility, Thunder Wave, Taunt, things like that, Volt Switch, U-Turn, Knockoff, Super Powered, all kinds of different coverage and stuff like that. Very, very solid mon, and I do expect it to come in the matchup. It can outpace, you know, the entirety of my team whilst with a timid nature, so it can potentially set up a Nasty Plot and then just incinerate my team, which is pretty scary, no lie. My opponent's second rocker is Heatran, which can serve as a special defensive wall, maybe an answer to something like Bronzong, potentially Thunder's Therian or Kartana without fighting coverage, things like that. I don't expect Heatran to come really, though. It could also be an offensive variant. It has a decent speed tier and super solid special attack stats, so that's something it could be. I do expect Reuniclus to come. It could be a Trick Room variant with Life Orb and the Magic Guard ability. It could be a Regenerator set. Lots of different things it could do. It could run a Cobra Berry for Muck, so that it can't be pursuit trapped, or when it gets its item knocked off, it's not as bad. It could also be a trick variant. Could be recover 3 attacks. Could be Calm Mind, recover 2 attacks. Could be even acid armor and weird things like that, so that Muck and Mega Gallade can really never break it. My opponent also has Klefki, so forms of hazard stack in here with spikes. He has Prankster T-Wave, Prankster Toxic, Switcheroo, things like that, and then he gets like Flash Cannon, Dazzling Gleam, Play Rough, maybe Iron Head. I'm not sure if it gets Iron Head, so don't quote me on that. And then It's a pretty solid answer to things like, I guess, like if it's got like magnet rise, it can avoid being damaged by a Gligar basically 100%. It's a pretty solid answer to Muck without Fire Punch, or like Power Up Punch or something weird like that. Heracross could be a Choice Scarf variant with Mega Horn, Close Combat, maybe Bullet Seed, and some things like that. I don't expect it to, like, if it comes, I expect it to be a Choice Scarf variant. I don't expect it to be like a sub variant or like a Swords Dance Salic variant or anything weird like that. I would expect a Choice Scarf variant. And then he has Drapion, like I mentioned earlier, is a really cool brain for him. It does get Earthquake and things like that, so it could trap Bronzong, could trap Haunter, could click Earthquake on the Alola Muck, can click the Poison Jab versus the Tapu Fini, and just have a really solid time versus my team. Could be an Assault Vest variant as well. Could be a Choice Scarf variant even. And then, however, it would struggle to deal with Gligar. However, it does get, knockoff, like I mentioned, so it could get rid of my Violet and things like that. Mega Medicham, another huge threat. And I think Drapion gets Toxic Spikes, but don't quote me on that either. Mega Medicham gets, Pure Power, so Drain Punch, Psycho Cut, Zen Headbutt, High Jump Kick. All those moves are just nuking things. Gets really solid coverage with Thunder Punch, Ice Punch, especially versus my team. And gets Baton Pass, so it could always be Baton Passing to really, annoy my team and stuff like that. If he expects, my switches. Like, I don't really have a bulky Psychic that can take on Mega Medicham because my Psychic type is also a Steel type. So, High Jump Kick's neutral and stuff like that, and not really trying to get nuked. So yeah, next up are the 4 mons that I mentioned were kind of strange, but could perform specific roles for his team. Marshtomp specifically could be a solid check to Thunder's Therian, maybe with a Rindo Berry, or just a really Spadef and a Violet, and Scouting for Grass Knot and things like that. Like he could pivot in on the Thunderbolt or the Psychic or the Sludge Wave, whatever I may go for, and then as I reveal Grass Knot, he could double into Heatran, he could double into Klefki, even Tangela maybe, try to get some regen back and stuff like that. Tangela, like I just mentioned, another Violet user, more than likely regen, 4 attacks, Assault Vest, maybe Spore, or not Spore, but Sleep Powder, maybe Stun Powder. Articuno could be a Choice Scarf variant, could be a Choice Specs variant, could be a Life Orb variant, could be Leftovers, Defog, could be some kind of support role. Very cool mon. I don't necessarily expect it to come though, but it could. And then Floats was actually pretty threatening, despite, being kind of a low tier mon or low value mon. Very solid mon though in my opinion. And yeah, with that being said, we can go ahead and hop into the builder here. And as you can see here, we have Mega Gallade as our first mon. We have Swords Dance, Close Combat, Ice Punch, and Knockoff. And I debated some other things like X-Scissor, and then I felt like I didn't need any Psychic coverage. I felt like Heracross is going to be taking, like, if it comes, Heracross is going to be taking a lot of damage from like +2 Close Combat. It's going to be chipped down quite a bit from my other mons as well. So I didn't feel the need to run Zen Headbutt or anything like that, and felt like this coverage is pretty solid versus my opponent. Ice Punch hits Garchomp and Thunder's Incarnate for an Oko after Stealth Rocks, as long as they're not Yachi Berry. Close Combat drops the Heatran. A +2 Knockoff is going to 2-hit KO any variants of Reuniclus, and +2 Close Combat's dropping Klefki. Drapion, it's a 2-hit KO to Mega Medicham. However, if there's prior damage, there's a possibility of just Oko in it, and then like +2 Knockoff's doing quite a bit as well. Floatzel, Tangela, Articuno, Marshtomp, they're all pretty much dropping to +2 Close Combat, especially if I get rid of the Violet on Tangela. And I do have Ice Punch that if it's out of range of Close Combat and I don't have time to knock its item off, I can just go ahead and click that Ice Punch and be pretty solid there. Knockoffs is specifically for Reuniclus, but it also does things like getting rid of items on Tangela, Marshtomp, etc. Which is going to be pretty important because, as you're going to see here on my Tapu Fini, I do have a pretty cool tech there. So we have enough speed to outpace Garchomp and enough attack investment to be able to 2-hit KO or Oko the things that I just mentioned, and then dropped the rest of my EVs in HP just to maximize bulk. Not really surviving anything weird. Say like a Garchomp goes for like a devastating Drake or something like that. I'm not going to be able to invest to the point to where it's not going to knock me out unless it's a defensive variant. So I'm not too worried about that. I can my SPDF's pretty high, so I can take Thunderbolts and Psychics from Thunders as long as it's not boosted and stuff like that. Reuniclus isn't going to OHKO me. It can 2-hit KO me, but it's not going to OHKO me. Heatran, same for that. It's not going to OHKO me. And this thing just puts in a lot of solid work, being able to outpace the entirety of his team outside of Floatzel and Thunders Incarnate. That being said, we can move on to Tapu Fini, who is our second mon we're bringing this week, and we're bringing this this pretty cool set here with the Toxic Orb. Since I have the Misty Terrain and I can't just toxic things immediately, I was going to try to do this kind of a gimmick set where I trick any of his mons, such as, well, first of all, I can trick any of them and just get rid of their item and give them a pointless Toxic Orb on things like Heatran and Klefki and Drapion, or I could take their item and poison them later on in the match when the Toxic Orb will activate when my Misty Terrain isn't up. My Misty Terrain protects me from being poisoned by Toxic Orb itself, so unless my Misty Terrain disappears, obviously. So my opponent maybe wants to use Magic Coat. I mean, not use Magic Coat, but maybe wants to set up rocks or Toxic Spikes, or maybe Sleep Powder with Tangela or anything weird like that. I can Magic Coat that back. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to Sleep Powder the Tangela, but just being able to Magic Coat that back and just PP stall it is nice. And I can trick it, a Toxic Orb, like I mentioned, it's going to be wore down by that, get rid of its Eviolite. Can do the same thing to Klefki. Maybe if he has like Air Balloon Heatran, I can take its Air Balloon away from it. Not that, it has a super solid reason for running an Air Balloon. But yeah, Surf and Moonblast just hit everything for at least neutral damage, which is super solid. And then Trick and Magic Coat are pretty much gimmicks and just trying to have some fun here. We're actually max defense, max HP, because that's the only way that we can survive hits from +2 Garchomp, potentially. And things like Heracross. This is a pretty solid check to Heracross. And a Thunder Punchless Mega Medicham. Or Poison Jab at that. Poison Jab or Thunder Punch. If it doesn't have either of those moves, this is a pretty solid check to Mega Medicham. So next up, we have Muck here, an Assault Vest variant Muck with enough attack investment to be able to do quite a bit of damage to things like Reuniclus, Heracross, Garchomp even is taking quite a bit from knockoff. It's not, ever gonna, especially if it's a Z move user, it's not doing too much at all. And Fire Punch is there for like Heracross, Klefki, and Tangela even though I do have Poison Jab, if it ever becomes like a point to where I have to risk it or something like that. Pursuit's there for the Reuniclus, so that Mega Gallade's job is a little bit easier. It can maybe avoid some Trick Room shenanigans, or maybe a Thunder Wave or something like that, and Pursuit Trap it, get rid of it. I have enough defense investment to take on hits from Heracross and Drapion. Can live Earthquakes from Drapion, like 2 Earthquakes. I'm not 2-hit KO'd. And can take hits on the especially defensive side as well, thanks to my Assault Vest and my naturally high SPDF stat, and can take hits from Heatran, Thunders, Incarnate, Reuniclus, etc. So that's the idea behind Muck. Not too much to say here, and kind of going back to the roots on Muck and not trying to get too cheeky. And yeah, next up we have Licky Licky, which is a Wish Protect set here with Ice Beam and Earthquake. Basically, max defense, max HP, allows me to take hits from Garchomp super solidly, hits really hard back with Ice Beam. Earthquake hits Heatran. Ice Beam also hits Thunders Incarnate. And then, I'm hitting everything at least for neutral damage. I think outside of a Magnet Rise Klefki. But other than that, everything else is getting hit at least neutrally by Wish Protect. And I feel pretty solid with this mon. Like, it's pretty much doing the same thing every week, running like coverage or just spamming one move whilst having Heal Bell and then Wish Protect. It's really spamming Wish Protect all season, and just making sure that there's longevity for my other Pokemon, really. There's not too much to say about Licky Licky. It's this big pink blob that's doing things for me. So yeah, Sticky. thank you for your work, and we'll move on to Thunderfuck next. And we got the Wise Glasses, Agility, 3 attacks, Thunderous Therian. Really goes ham in this match. If he doesn't bring Fake Out on Mega Medicham, I'm inclined to take Rocks and basically, any hit, well, not any hit, but a hit from anything as I set up an Agility, and then use my Wise Glasses to boost my already insane special attack stat. And Thunderbolt, Grass Knot, Hidden Power, Ice, the only coverage I need. And really putting in the work with this mod. If we can get the certain scenarios set up, Stealth Rocks up, and chip on things like Heat Ran. Heat Ran's a really big one. Heat Ran, Clef Key, get some chip on those. Get some chips on Drapion and Tangela and things like that. Eliminate Tangela, really, and I really need to get some chip on. Make sure that Mega Medicham doesn't have Fake Out and stuff like that. And then Hidden Power Ice is bopping Garchomp and Tangela. Grass Knot's hitting the Marshtomp, and then Thunderbolt's literally hitting everything else. Like, literally. he has no resist outside of Tangela and Garchomp. And then Marshtomp being an immunity. And Garchomp. Marshtomp and Garchomp being an immunity. But both getting bopped 4 times super effectively by Grass Knot and Hidden Power Ice. So that's pretty dope. Enough speed to outpace, I think, the regular... Wait, no. Enough speed to outpace Mega Medicham, that's what it was. And then can Agility up will make me faster than all his potential Choice Scarf users, I believe. So that's pretty insane. But yeah, next up we have Blue Cheese, our Gligar, a Violet user, Stealth Rock, Earthquake, U-Turn, and Roost. Max HP, Max Spadef this week. Kind of got a little bit lazy, as you can see on Leaky, Tapu Fini, and Gligar, all being Max HP, Max Defense, or Max HP, Max Spadef. But it kind of works out best in this week's scenario. I can take a Hidden Power Ice from Thunderous Incarnate from full. I can take Overheats from Heat Ran, Psychic from Reuniclus, things like that. Can naturally take hits from Heracross on the physically defensive side, and things like Drapion as well. And if Mega Medicham doesn't have Ice Punch, I'll take hits from it pretty solidly too. Floatzel, Articuno, and Marshtomp kind of threaten me, and but like I mentioned earlier, I don't expect a lot of those to come. I do have, this is my designated Stealth Rocker, so I need to get my Stealth Rocks up as early as possible. Earthquake spam is pretty nice. Like, my opponent's more than likely going to, he's got a couple immunities, Articuno, Thunderous Incarnate. He has 1 resist, well, 2 resist being Heracross and Tangela. So I can U-turn out on those, not really fearing their attacks, and can Earthquake all else except Thunderous Incarnate and Articuno, which I can switch into Articuno pretty comfortably. While I can't really switch into Thunderous Incarnate comfortably, I can avoid being like detrimentally in pain from Thunderous Incarnate. But yeah, that's gonna be it for the team builder. Let me know what you think about the prep. What do you think my opponent's going to bring? What would you have did differently? Any kind of cool, weird sets that you'd have brought, like my Tapu Fini here with the Toxic Orb and Trick. So, like I mentioned, I do have to, like, my Misty Terrain has to disappear before this Toxic Orb will activate on any mon. So when I trick it, something may not be poisoned immediately, so that's okay. We just have to wait for the Misty Terrain to disappear, and then it'll be okay. So, that being said, that's going to be it for the team builder. Let me know what you think. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.